Welcome back to Building Up Your Business, the podcast, your one-stop resource shop to build your growing consumer goods business. I'm Erica Dill from Operationally Up, your hostess with the mostest. We are here to optimize your operations for a growing business to maximize your profitability. I'm super excited about today's guest on our podcast. Justin is joining us, and he specializes in multi-unit leadership, specifically focusing on sales. He's worked with some huge brands like Ethan Allen and Calico, and working with such commercial systems furniture brands as Herman Miller and Knoll. I am so thrilled you're here. Thank you so much for joining us, Justin.
Thanks so much for having me, Erica. I'm looking forward to it.
And today, you're going to give us 3 exercises to create exceptional customer experiences. I'm super intrigued, so let's just jump right in.
Okay.
We're going to talk about customer experiences and exceptional customer experiences. What does that mean? What are we saying?
Okay. So, great question, first of all, because it's not something probably everybody talks about or hears. When we say exceptional customer experiences, we're really talking about the type that create enthusiastically satisfied customers. Somebody who will actually want to go out there and talk about what we do. We all want to satisfy our customers, I think, as business people. That's normal. That's common. That's generally why we even go into business, is to solve their need. However, when somebody has such a great experience that they actually go out, tell others about the experience, and even invite them to come and join them in the purchasing process from that brand, that's what an enthusiastically satisfied customer really is. So, we've all had, for example, someone tell us about that great new restaurant, or perhaps that really reliable or most affordable contractor, something like that. Every business relies partially on this, is a customer experience as part of their marketing and their customer acquisition strategy. You can see it, you can feel it really well when you interact with the staff at a company that's doing it particularly well. Imagine, for a second, let's say it's like the difference between going to a 5-star hotel like a Ritz-Carlton versus a 3-star Hampton Inn. Okay. Both interesting brands, both decent experiences, but the Ritz-Carlton experience is going to be quite elevated and probably one you'll even talk about and share. So that's what we're going to talk about. And it really will resonate a little bit deeper when we discuss some of the data surrounding some of that. Ultimately, creating these exceptional experiences usually requires a staff that is engaging with customers directly to be trained really well on what will delight them, and maybe even possibly surprise them while shopping or purchasing with your brand. So, it also doesn't necessarily mean you have to give away any kind of gifts or extend any discounts. That's not necessarily part of the experience, part of it for the consumer, although we sometimes think that as business owners and operators. Also, when it comes down to how we define this, PricewaterhouseCoopers, they have data that shows that nearly 80% of American consumers say that speed, convenience, knowledgeable help, and friendly service are the most important elements of a customer positive experience, right? So that positive customer experience that's going to happen are those things. They value their time, and the less of it we use, the better the experience for them. They also opt in for convenience, obviously. Whenever having too many steps or challenges in the process, they're not going to like that. They expect sales associates to know or give them access to the pertinent information that they request to help make their decisions. And when it comes to friendly service, the feeling of someone genuinely offering, service in a pleasant and enjoyable manner wins every time. So how your team engages with customers and the ease and speed with which they do so, to provide value will create the experience. And we all want that to be a wow moment for every customer.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I really picked up on that moment when you said to do this, it requires training and it doesn't require giving something away for free. Because I feel like so many times, leaders or decision makers are like, oh, we need to provide an exceptional experience. Let's give them cookies, or let's provide coffee. And while that's great and all, it's not an actual requirement for actually providing exceptional
Right.
experience.
You
So
probably haven't
I
talked
love that
about
you
that with your
highlight that.
friends, right? When you're out and about, you don't say, "Oh, look, they gave me cookies. That's why I want to go back there."
You know, I do have to say, in college, we did find the companies that would give out free cookies and soft drinks and may have used that to our advantage, but we'll put that example aside. So, I mean, the way that you talk about this, you're saying that companies can actually increase revenue and that there's truly an ROI here, and that's why companies should care. Can you give us some examples?
Yes. Let me speak to that a little bit with more of that data I was talking about. So, PwC shared data through the end of 2023, for example, showing that 73% of customers point to experience as an important factor in their purchasing decisions behind price and quality. So, price and quality are definitely up there, but experience is right behind that. And many of us wouldn't necessarily think that or even talk about that as business owners. We focus a lot on the top two. And ultimately, that can make or break the success of your brand if they have a bad experience. Also notable, for example, 32% of customers globally would stop doing business with a brand after just one bad experience. One. That's all it takes.
Wow.
We all expect that there are a few customers out there for which perhaps our brand is just not a fit. That happens, right? We're not going to be able to do everything for everyone. However, losing that customer that is a fit over a bad experience and not getting a second chance to regain their confidence could really be detrimental. Here's the kicker, too. A whopping 86% of customers overall are willing to pay 10 to 20% more for a great experience. And that's when we don't really hear or talk about much. So the better the experience you provide, the more you can actually charge. And that's where some of that ROI comes back in as well. So you can
So
see
when
how
companies
investing
are
in this.
trying to eke up that profitability, there's that 10 to 20% that they could be leaving on the table.
Yeah, and many times that's not even discussed in meetings, people talking together as managers and groups trying to understand how to get this to be done. Ultimately, if they could elevate the experience, they have a really great opportunity to make that happen. So it's not something that has to be earth-shattering, but it does have to be something that's going to be memorable and impactful for that consumer. So that's really what it's about.
Well, and when we're talking about customer acquisition costs and how much the company is spending to acquire just one customer, if they have one bad experience, that's just money out the door that they've wasted because they've acquired it and then wasted that customer, and now they have to pay it again.
Exactly. Exactly. So you can
Wow.
see how this is truly going to bring a lot of value to your brand over time if you can truly elevate that customer experience to be exceptional.
And I mean, obviously, your experience is in retail locations and putting these, the experiences and trainings that we're going to talk about into play. But can they be applied to other types of sales teams, like on the phone or in a trade show booth, or is it purely retail floor?
Absolutely. Any sales team can benefit from learning skills that will help them create a genuinely exceptional experience for customers on a consistent basis. Many of the principles cross over from whether it's virtual or phone conversations to live in-person interactions in the selling process. And whether your team is in a retail store, like you said, a trade show, somewhere else, out live, they're simply making calls. Even the exercise I'm going to show you today, or the exercises, with regular practice, really can help you improve their engagement, help them provide better experiences for your customers, and improve their performance in sales overall.
Wow. Well, I think we've explained enough to be compelling about how important this topic is today. So let's dive right in. Tell us about the first training, the first experience that people can create in their sales teams.
Absolutely. So this first exercise is called What's in the Bag. Sounds like a silly name, right? But it's a simple game, and it's really around helping sales teams learn how to refine the questions that they ask customers to more quickly arrive at the right solutions that they want to purchase. That's one of the biggest challenges, right? That discovery phase of selling, is understanding your customer. So this is what this one's about. It's really simple. To begin, the business leader or you as the coach in the process of this, perhaps, you're going to take a shopping bag, one that can stand up right on its own, and inside of it place maybe 3 to 5 different objects. They don't need to be large. They should be small and relatively definable in terms of what they are so that they're easy enough to work with. And you're going to be having these associates work on asking questions to guess about what they are. So that's the ultimate goal here. The leader
Like one at a
shares.
time, they're guessing the items one at a time.
Exactly, one at a time. And so the leader is going to share that the sales associate can ask up to 5 questions to determine exactly what they think this is that's in the bag, and then make their guess. For any correct answers or guesses, it's good to have maybe some prizes or some kind of nominal thing to create an incentive to perform well in this process and makes it fun as well. But for incorrect guesses, another associate can also continue by asking 2 additional questions in order to make their guess. The idea of this is that hopefully as they're digging in and asking more questions, they will become more and more refined about how they ask them, and they'll be more targeted to help them get a better response. You may have somebody who never gets anything in the first place, right? So if they don't guess it, for example, and the questions weren't particularly helpful in that process, then perhaps you can talk about that, and then start the game again. It's also
Learning
good to
experience.
discuss. Yeah, it's also really good to discuss after each one of these which questions were the ones that were the most helpful. How were they helpful? How were they structured? Talking as a team about that, really discussing what that looks like, asking the associates to share why they asked some of the questions that they asked in their mind, what was going on and what was prompting that question, to see if they can get behind some of that as well. It's a great exercise to improve, the speed at which your team can identify the needs and wants of the customer. So we're talking about that speed process for the customer and how quickly we can offer them a solution that makes sense to them and that they can buy into. And it also teaches them to ask better questions for a better response. Happens to be a lot of fun along the way too, like I said. So using it with your team, for example, we did this selling custom fabricated window coverings. This was at Ethan Allen years ago. We were making these from the fabrics we were selling. We had increased our close ratio using this exercise by about 25% as the design consultants more quickly found the perfect fabric solutions with their customers. Many of these customers,
25%?
25% increase in the close ratio in this category, right? So custom fabricated window coverings. And many of those customers before were leaving frustrated, overwhelmed, and probably never came back or even got a quote because we just didn't get there. We didn't find that solution that they could connect to. It took too long. So you can understand right there how quickly you can make an impact if you can get your team to do this better.
That's what incredible results and what an easy exercise to do with people. And it sounds fun. It's almost like 20 questions, and which everybody has kind of played before, but then it's put in a whole new light. I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So then what's number 2? And the other thing that, I was just thinking about, now I'm all excited. That costs like nothing. So are all these exercises practically no cost?
Yes, exactly. None of this stuff is
Just a
going to
little
be
bit of
something you have to
time.
invest much in other than your time to plan. Exactly.
Wow. All right. So what's number 2? What's the second exercise?
All right, so I like to call this one Mom's Best Friend. It's kind of a unique name for it. Sounds a little silly at first, but I think you'll understand in a moment. So this one's all about how do you engage each sales associate to create their own genuine exceptional experience for every customer by visualizing what that would look and sound like, and especially if that customer was their mother's best friend. So there's a difference there, right? I developed this exercise myself by applying the methods from an experience I had in high school with my drama teacher, who walked a room full of us through, as students, a guided imagery session for about 20 minutes before we began every rehearsal or performance, so we could be relaxed, focused, and ready to perform our roles in the production. The exercise helps associates, for example, provide the convenience, knowledge, and the friendly service we were talking about that PwC data points to. So here we go. Step 1, It's really simple. It's to have a particular new product line or perhaps your new display or a new process that you're trying to introduce that you can physically, if possible, get your team seated next to or surrounded by in some way.
Well, I'm
Second
sure
step,
you could even do that virtually if you send images of the display or
yes.
a brochure on the different flyers. So
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to be a physical.
Absolutely. And if it's a process, obviously there's no physical aspect to that. There may be some kind of, uh,
Written
chart or
documentation on the
graph or
process.
documentation on it exactly that you can send out in advance to be able to speak to this. The second step then is to set up a mobile speaker, and this is in the physical environment, but you can do this over virtual as well if you had to,
Oh yeah.
and have sound. And you want to have the ability to play some sort of soothing or relaxing music. Usually spa style or relaxing piano music is best and at a medium background volume. You're going to be speaking over this, so you don't want to be too loud with the music. And be prepared for that. You're not going to start the music yet, but it's going to be there in a later step. So this is part of the prep in advance. Then you want to ask your associates to look around at the display or products or look at that process documentation, for example, and to think about how they would share the value story of this. How are they going to communicate that? What do some of those words sound like? What are the phrases they're going to use? What kind of gesturing might they use if they have to do that? If it's a physical environment, they might think about where they're going to move to in order to communicate the value, things like that. You give them about 2 minutes or so to formulate a few ideas. You don't need to go too far with this. We just want to get them started thinking ahead of this, and it starts to create that focus a little bit. So now we're going to instruct them to close their eyes. And this is when you start playing that soothing music in the background. And you're also going to take them through a couple of relaxing breathing exercises just to get them to focus their mind. So, breathing in slowly for 7 seconds, holding that for 4 seconds, breathing out slowly for 7 seconds consistently, and doing that a few times in a row will get people centered. I think we've heard of that before, probably most of us. But it can really do that, and it really takes your mind and focuses it. So it can also help, for example, to walk them through a couple of seated stretches, gentle rolls of the neck or shoulder shrugs or something like that that they can do slowly, and they can focus on a particular body part at one time, just getting their mind, attention on this exercise. Then you're going to take them through the exercise itself, which is to ask them to start imagining walking through, whether it's physically or it's actually just in their mind's eye about how they're going to say or do things, through that display, process, or new product line, allowing themselves to let the ideas that they had previously thought about regarding how to tell someone about it to come through and to start letting a few other ones pop up into their heads. They can also visualize saying them to that next customer that they're about to meet. So that's a really helpful part of this, is to just start thinking, what am I going to say? Then here comes their customer. And we're going to express as their leader through this that it's their mom's best friend. So you'll also want to share, for example, that this means we need to make sure the experience is particularly going well, right? Mom's friend will likely share the story afterwards and, with the mother. And then that may come back to you personally as
There's
the
going to be a
associate.
phone call.
Yes. So there's inherent accountability in this scenario, right? The idea is that you're doing this for someone you might actually interact back with again and hear from on the other side of it. And that's what's important, is to really think, what is it like to be hearing from somebody after I've done this?
Wow.
So now you direct them to visualize how they would greet that customer, that specific scenario, right? What would they ask? How are they going to guide this customer through that? What are the right solutions they start to find for that customer? So they're envisioning the whole process. They should also even think about, what are they going to say to provide the best value and experience? Pause for a moment to let them experience the engagement in their mind, because it does take a minute for people to think about this. So you don't want to just keep going. You want to take this slow. And then guide them to imagine what the closing of that sale would look like. And what, for example, the first follow-up will look or sound like afterwards. In the process, and maybe a few of the other steps if you want. Finally, you're going to invite them to slowly open their eyes back up, and this is where you can fade down the volume of the music to 0, and if you had maybe lights dimmed or anything like that to kind of help the focus, bring those back to life. And what you're going to do is start debriefing and having a roundtable with the team, and you're going to start asking others to share the experience that they gave and how they gave it and why they gave it. Asking others in the team to start commenting on that. What went well about that? How did Erica do this really well? Why did Erica say that, do you think? Would you do it any differently? And start getting that conversation going. It's a really great brainstorming opportunity for everybody. But it also gets them really thinking about what are the actual things we're going to do ourselves, so it's genuine. It's not what they're being told to say. It's not a script they're being handed.
Yeah.
It's not just bullet talking points that they have to memorize and repeat back. It's really, how is it going to come from me personally to the rest of the people that I talk to, so it's real. And that's what's going to make a big difference, because ultimately we love a genuine associate when we're working with somebody, and that's always a great experience, right?
Yeah, well, I was absolutely going to say, I mean, it makes such a difference when you're talking to a sales rep who's just like, and now we have this, and it comes in blue and gray and green. Like, it's just not, it's not helpful in any way, shape, or form. But
Right.
if they've got that information and it rolls naturally off of them, you're just so much more likely to identify with them.
Right. So I'll share with you another living example. We had launched a lifestyle collection, and this exercise helped associates connect with their clients so well when we went through walking through that new lifestyle collection, that they increased their conversions to the in-home interior design consultation appointments, moving from the store to getting to the consumer's home, by 20% in the following weeks. That was a great growth. We'd been working on other things for that for a long time and never found that example of how to do it. And this started getting them to
Was that
really
after
create
just
these better
one? Just
experiences. We had to
one
do this
time?
a few times. We had to do it a few
Okay.
times, because there's only limited time to have a meeting and go through this, and one time isn't
Right.
necessarily going to impact everybody's memory or knowledge about it. But doing it a couple of times, it was once a week for a few weeks. The weeks following that, we saw that increase trend right up. So it was
Well,
very
I was going to say,
effective.
even if you did it 3 or 4 weeks, so that's 3 or 4 times, and you can increase by 20%, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly. And this was just taking people from one step in our selling process to the next, and a very big one for us, because if you get into the
Yeah.
home, that's where our real sale was. Now we could really do a full consultation for our consumer. So that made the biggest difference in the world.
Wow. Wow, what great results that you got from doing that. I mean, that's impeccable. Okay, so let's move on. I'm so excited. What's the third one?
All right, so this third one I'm sharing today it's inspired by improv, and it's called "What Else." So
I
we've all
feel a
probably
yes
heard.
and
Yeah, I was just about
vibe
to say it.
coming.
We've all heard that yes and kind of thing before, but this is what else, which is a little different. So what we're doing here is we're focusing on how to open the consumer's mind to other needs beyond what they initially shared. So this is how you can expand your sale, right? We all want to take them and get them a little broader depth into our offerings, get them sold on more of those so that we can really complete our service level to the consumer
Like an
and get
upsell.
as much revenue out of them as possible, right? Let's maximize our customer. It's easier to do that with the one you've met and know than it is to do that with ones that you're trying to acquire. So
Sure.
this one's best as an interactive role play, typically between two sales associates, though I would recommend starting with you as the leader in this process if you're good at interacting this way, or someone else on your team who is, being one who can act with the first person a couple of times just to give the example. So everybody gets the idea of the exercise. And basically, it's one associate acting as the customer, the other one thinking of and that customer is going to think of like a particular product or service that they need that your brand offers, right? So let's have that kind of set up in their mind. The other one's going to play themselves and act as the actual salesperson engaging with the customer. And as often as possible, they're going to use the words "what else" at the end of each thing that they interact in, so that they may get through a couple of sentences and it's "what else" as they finish finding solutions for that consumer along the way. And they'll see that they keep getting further and further along. So an example from our furniture world was selling a night table, right? So when you're selling a night table and asking the client, so Erica, what else do you need to put on top of your night table? And you say
A
something like
lamp?
a lamp so I can
Nightlight?
read. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I say, what else? And you go, a tray for my watch and my phone, and so on and so on, things like that. So this should go on as long as possible until all the products available in your program are sold to the customer, if you can do it, or at least a handful of them, so you get an idea of how this works. And then the selling associate should conclude with, what else can I do to be helpful today? right? Because there's always what else? What else can I do? And there may not be anything in that customer's mind, but it provides that exceptional experience of that person is still serving me even when things look like we're done. So implementing this exact exercise, for example, in our retail interior design home furnishings environment, I was able to increase our region's accent and custom goods category sales. So custom goods and accents, both from 11% to 16% each.
Wow.
This was now exceeding the company benchmark that 30% combined between the two out of overall sales. So we captured a lot more business with this, and also did a better job of servicing the client's end result of getting a complete design, which is really what they saw and what we marketed. So if they didn't get that from us before, we were missing a beat. We really weren't providing the service we thought we were advertising. So it's pretty amazing.
Well, and a much higher return on that customer acquisition cost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just being able to really dig deep and complete the process of everything we offer with each consumer. And not all of that happens immediately. Some of that can take some time depending on your sales cycle. But ultimately, you can see that this is something that can do a lot for your business. So that ROI definitely comes through. And this is just another one of those fun ways you can engage. I think it's laughable at times. People will joke. It's going to make it feel a little bit lighthearted. It's not meant to be a serious exercise in that regard, but it is meant to get you really thinking and spontaneously thinking, what else?
Right.
And how am I going to do that? And then be mindful to that when you're interacting with each customer. What else can I do for this customer in front of me, or on the phone or in that virtual interaction? What else can I provide as value to keep making that experience exceptional?
Well, and I mean, it's been used and documented for so long to use improv methods in trainings, and specifically in sales training. So this is, a fantastic kind of play on that. That's not so, because I know the yes and gets used a lot, but sometimes it's hard for team members to really understand and transition that into a real life application. And what I love about this exercise is that it's a real life application. They don't have to bridge in their mind. They don't have to do that bridge to be like, well, now how do I go and apply this? Because it's a real life example.
Yeah, it extends it further into exactly what we're doing in sales. So that's what I like about this one, and why I liked adapting it the way it did. So all of this, it's helpful to take time to document with your team what that exceptional experience was that you came up with. Look over those details, discover new ones as you talk and do the exercises, celebrate the successes with the team as they do this to foster the growth over time. Those are things we know from being leaders anyway and in sales, but if you don't do that in combination with the exercises, you won't get quite the results. And occasionally brainstorming new ways to delight customers, find a way to differentiate the brand a little bit and create a branded experience that is unique, even if it's a similar product to other people out in the marketplace. Having that mindset top of mind, you can really enhance that customer experience really well, very often, consistently with your team.
Well, and that's a really good point, because if you try these exercises but you're not using proper change management technique and you're just throwing it out there, it's not going to stick and it's not going to have that impact with your team. So, back to your point about leadership, you need to make sure that you're using proper procedures when you're rolling these things out to have that maximum output. So I love that.
Absolutely.
This has been fantastic, and I'm sure that our listeners they could take this home and do it tomorrow if they wanted to, which is, it's a great thing to have those free resources. And if somebody has questions or wants to ask you more or get more information, where can they find you? What is the best way to contact you?
Best way would be through LinkedIn directly. So just look for Justin Peteris on there. You'll find me pretty easily. And I'm happy to respond. I'm very responsive there as well.
Well, we'll put your LinkedIn link in the comments here on this podcast so that anybody who can reach out to you and get more information. And I really appreciate you being a resource for our listeners, so that when they go to apply this, they can reach out. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for being on the podcast and taking your time. It's been truly valuable experience.
Thanks so much again for having me. It was a lot of fun to talk about things that work well for making a great experience.
I love it. And thank you for watching another episode of Building Your Business, the podcast. I am your host, Erica Dill with Operationally Up. Remember that our podcasts come out every 2 weeks, so stay in tune to see what is coming out next, and we hope to catch you back here soon. Thanks. Have a great day.